Hello and welcome to today's Solenis Insight webinar talking about tissue solutions for the new normal. Before we get started, I'd like to cover some housekeeping tips. So this is an MS Teams live event. You are in listen-only mode. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A following the presentation. If you'd like to ask a question, please type in English in the Q&A panel on the toolbar. The webinar is being recorded and a copy will be available to share later on solenis.com. Allow me to introduce you to our speakers today. Richard Cho is the Global Marketing Director for Tissue and Towel. Richard has held the position of Global Marketing Director for Tissue and Towel at Solenis since 2016. Also with us today is Steve Achille, North America Marketing Manager for Tissue and Towel. With almost 30 years of paper industry experience, 20 of those focusing on tissue and towel, Steve is responsible for developing the North America regional marketing strategy. Richard and Steve will take us through their presentation on tissue solutions for the new normal. At this time, I'll hand it over to Richard. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Jill. Next slide, please. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today on our webinar, Tissue Solutions for the New Normal. During today's presentation, we will cover three topics. First, we'll discuss COVID-19's impact on the overall economy, as well as taking a closer look at its impact on the tissue and paper segments. Next, we'll share our point of view on what the new normal will look like as things begin to stabilize. And specifically, we'll have some points around how we believe the new normal will impact the tissue industry. And then third, we will discuss, could you go back? Third, we'll discuss growth opportunities. I believe Winston Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And, we believe that's highly relevant for the tissue industry. We think there will be opportunities for growth, and we will highlight some of those opportunities during this call. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, since the beginning of the pandemic, right, there have been several actions. We've experienced stay-at-home orders, travel restrictions, social distancing guidelines, and, there's been a significant strain on the global economy as many industries have been hit very hard. This slide just shows some data points which really highlight the magnitude of the impact and the challenge it's created. So you can see this is data from Congressional Research Service. In the U.S. in 2020, the U.S. experienced the largest quarterly GDP decline since 2008. Similarly, the Eurozone in 2020 experienced its largest decline since 1995. And the central bank also estimates Brazil GDP to decline in the mid-single digits. So again, there's been a significant strain on the global economy, and this applies across regions. Next slide, please. So this slide takes a closer look at the impact on the paper industry. So this is data that Moody's had provided in March, but I think it's still a good reference point for this discussion. You can see in 2020, there is a projected decline in the paper industry in the mid-single digits across regions. But again, from March, they projected 2021 to rebound nicely. You could see on the right-hand side, 3 to 4 to 5% growth. But again, this projection did not factor in a second wave. It looks like in several regions, a second wave is a possibility. So I think the key here is that once things stabilize, I think we should expect the paper industry to kind of return back to a solid growth rate. But it's possible the rebound could be delayed versus this original 2021 projection. Next slide, please. So this slide takes a closer look at the impact on tissue towel. And just to help you with the chart, the green box means a clear increase in sales. Yellow box means neutral to moderate decline, and then a red box means clear decline. And as you can see, as we segment the tissue category into consumer and away from home tissue, the impact of COVID-19, it's two very different stories. So on the consumer side, you see green boxes across the board. As early in the pandemic, there was early consumer pantry loading, which drove just significant sales increases across regions. But again, once you got beyond the pantry loading, as we had stay-at-home orders, people were working from home, children were being homeschooled. There's more people at home during the day. People are eating out less. So again, that also just leads to higher at-home tissue consumption. The other point is with this the renewed focus on hygiene, on surface cleaning, kitchen counters. Again, we think the usage occasions for products such as paper towels has significantly increased as well. So that just gives you perspective on the consumer market. In away from home, conversely, as away from home channels experience significant declines in foot traffic, right? Fewer people were traveling through airports, stadiums did not have games, people were not going to restaurants. The away from home channel was significantly impacted, and so you can see yellow and red across regions. One positive aspect is as there was such a shortage of tissue availability, we saw away from home tissue being sold into the consumer channel, either through e-commerce or through traditional brick and mortar. So in some cases, some of the away from home tissue makers were able to at least partially offset some of the softness by increasing their footprint in the consumer channel. One point on this slide is you see Latin America and Asia Pacific are yellow, and that's primarily because in those regions, there's less delineation between away from home tissue the maker and consumer. It's not as clearly delineated as in Europe and North America, so that's why those regions you see yellow boxes. Next slide, please. So now, again, we really want to focus looking forward. So again, let me shift now to the new normal part of the discussion. And again, this is just kind of the different phases. So initially we had lockdown, we moved towards reopening, and then, the thinking is we would move towards a new normal. However, this is not a straight linear path. And as we know, as economies begin to reopen, it looks like there might be multiple instances of reopening and then moving back towards some sort of lockdown or stay at home. So again, I think the key here though is, once we do move past the pandemic, we do get to this new normal. Again, our perspective is there will be opportunities for growth, and we'll discuss those in more depth. So next slide, please. So again, in terms of the new normal, we've identified 4 platforms that we think present growth opportunities in this new environment. First is the expansion of non-wood and recycled fiber tissue to consumers. And again, during the pandemic, as there was just a increased demand for any tissue product you could get, trial of bamboo tissue, consumer trial for recycled tissue also increased significantly during this time. So some of the drivers for that is the direct-to-consumer. So there are several new direct-to-consumer brands that are 100% bamboo tissue. These companies reported a 200 to 300% increase in their sales. So what that means is that more households were putting bamboo tissue into their home, and they were getting just significant increases in trial. Similarly, as the away-from-home tissue producers that are predominantly 100% recycled fiber, as those tissue producers, found their way into consumer households, again, consumer trial of recycled tissue also, expanded significantly during this time. So we believe after, initial household trial, we believe that consumer acceptance of these types of tissue will increase. We believe that repurchase of these tissues will increase as well. And again, if you think about it, the sustainability profile is very positive for bamboo or recycled tissue. If you think about households that have maybe teenagers or people in Gen Z where there's a little bit more focus on sustainability, we think the market is there for this segment of tissue to expand its share. So again, in terms of opportunities, if there are companies that could maybe help make bamboo tissue softer, improve the quality of recycled tissue, innovate differently, market differently, we think there's a real opportunity here, as there's good momentum given the significant increase in consumer trial with these non-wood or recycled fiber tissues. The second platform we think there's an opportunity is what we're calling germ prevention. So again, with a renewed focus on hand hygiene, right? More hand washing is going to equal more hand drying. Similarly, there's a renewed focus on surface cleaning. So we're going to see, higher usage occasions of cleaning kitchen counters, doorknobs, things like that, disinfecting surfaces. So if you think about it, there's an opportunity here for paper towels as, hand hygiene, hand drying. Oftentimes that's a cloth towel that's used in that occasion. Similarly, for surface cleaning, oftentimes that's either a sponge or a non-woven product. We think there's an opportunity for innovation, with a more durable paper towel, maybe a softer paper towel for hand drying. We think the opportunity is there for good paper towel innovation to possibly source usage occasions from these sponges, non-wovens, and cloth towels. And again, so we think just aligning with this area, we think there's a good opportunity for growth. Number three, we think there's an opportunity in the away from home segment. Again, so we're seeing more and more studies and more awareness on jet air dryers, and there's a perception that the jet air dryers spread bacteria, and disposable paper towels for hand drying, or maybe a more hygienic way to dry your hands. We're also seeing more touchless platforms, or maybe the reemergence of door tissue, where people don't want to touch the doorknob. Maybe they want a layer in between their hand and the doorknob. So again, we think the trend is there for increased tissue consumption in away from home, and again, it just really is around aligning capabilities with the kind of what the trend is. And then fourth, we're seeing a mill digitization as a real opportunity. Again, so this really is around, more resilient, making your operation more resilient, more able to withstand crises. And again, so mill digitization, it's not a new platform, but we think with COVID and moving into the new normal, we believe it's just going to be even more important for all manufacturing environments to just have better alignment with prescriptive tools, autonomous monitoring, and really just any tool out there to help an operation be more resilient and, again, withstand the unexpected. Next slide, please. One other area I'd like to highlight is direct-to-consumer tissue. And again, when I say direct-to-consumer tissue, I'm not talking about a company selling their products to Amazon. I'm talking about a startup company that focuses on making tissue products, and their model is not to sell it through brick and mortar or Amazon. Their model is for you to order the product directly from them. So we've seen direct-to-consumer model. We've seen that model disrupt other categories. I could mention razors, mattresses, and again, why I'm talking about is it's direct-to-consumer tissue is not new, but given the supply, the demand crunch over the last 6 months, their business skyrocketed. Their trial has skyrocketed. Again, they're depending on the company, they're reporting increases in the 200 to 300% range, and most of these products are 100% bamboo. So I don't have them here, but we've identified, I think, 6 or 8 direct-to-consumer tissue companies, and they're all 100% bamboo. So again, I think there's an opportunity here, or I'm calling it out because there's the opportunity for disruption in a couple areas. One, I mentioned maybe it'll create a more of a consumer demand for bamboo tissue, more consumer acceptance. But two, if consumers, they start to get used to ordering their tissue products online, they start to like it. Maybe it also disrupts the channel model and the way consumers buy tissue. By ordering directly from these companies. Next slide, please. So with that, I will now pass it to my colleague, Steve Achille, who will discuss specific growth opportunities in more depth.
Thank you, Richard. I'm going to take an opportunity here to talk a little bit more deeply about the 4 platforms that Richard highlighted. First, we're going to talk about alternative fibers and some of the challenges around productivity enhancements. And again, this is related to the emergence of 100% bamboo in tissue and the effects of the direct-to-consumer sales channel. Also, we need to be aware that these alternative fibers and expansion of non-wood fibers come with certain processing challenges that need to be addressed around machine hygiene, runnability, and cleanliness. So a little bit deeper dive on the challenges with bamboo pulp. As a quick pulp comparison, when we look at bamboo versus eucalyptus, acacia, and softwood kraft, we all notice that the contaminants that are contained within these non-wood pulps are typically much higher. Fines extractives are higher inorganics, particularly silica in this case of bamboo. Unfortunately, these extractive levels and high fines level come with a penalty or a cost, and they can have a pretty big impact on your Yankee coating, making it more hard, making it more dusty, making it more abrasive. And ultimately, it leads to reduced throughput and productivity and also reduced softness. And so these are the challenges that we're faced with and things that we need to think about overcoming as we introduce these alternative fibers to the process. So from a Solenis commercial capability standpoint, there are some unique experiences that we've had with Yankee coating products, that were invented really prior to expansion of these non-wood fibers and acceptance of these non-wood fibers. And what we found is that the adhesion levels could be too high, the coating film could be too hard. So relating back to some of the challenges that we knew were going to be experienced as these non-wood fibers found their way into tissue. And then from there, we've been able to develop a series of new chemistries, new Crepetrol products and new RESIN products aimed at bamboo type fiber sources. So we have a series of Crepetrol bamboo adhesives and a series of RESIN bamboo modifiers or releases to really help balance some of the challenges that we see with these alternative fibers coming into the marketplace. Next slide. If we talk more about commercial capabilities as it relates to bamboo tissue, we know, based on some of the data that we shared earlier, that controlling headbox fines, effectively controlling headbox fine is going to be a key for your success going forward. And so there are a series of retention drainage platforms that are really there to help manage the process overall. And the value behind them is that you can get improved softness, you can get better Yankee coating performance and reduce dust performance as you reach a new equilibrium around headbox fines in your system. So fines management is really about managing the overall process and making sure that you're able to achieve some of the harder parameters around quality and productivity through managing the process more effectively. Other commercial capabilities really are focused on pitch and stickies control, again, focusing on those extractive levels. Noticing that without the ability to remove pitch and stickies, you can have some pretty severe breakouts with pitch, problems around felt conditions, and how your machine behaves as far as stickies and pitch and holes. So really with a pitch and stickies control program coupled with a retention drainage program, you can reach a new equilibrium to solve some of those runnability issues, reduce breaks, and improve your overall machine hygiene. From a case history standpoint, we have some customer challenges out there. We know that this insoluble silica can create some challenges. There are black particles that come in and are significant contaminants that can cause some issues with felt washing and cycling and downtime associated with these types of contaminants coming in. And on the recorded benefit side from running a DTAC program, for pitch and stickies control, as you can see a reduction in sheet holes. You can get better felt cleaning cycles, and we've actually seen some improved machine speeds through proper application of the right type of chemistry in bamboo tissue as it exists today in Asia. So a good case study where it shows that we were able to address some of those incoming issues associated with these alternative wood fibers. Next slide. Talk a little bit about the next pillar or platform that Richard discussed, which is germ prevention, focusing on hand drying, focusing on surface cleaning and some of the takeaways that we have in enabling technologies for developing new and enhanced toweling platforms. You want to go to the next slide, please? So from an enabling technology standpoint, there's really three areas I'm going to talk about. The first are strength chemistries. I think Solenis has been well known in the industry for chymine, as well as our HERCOBOND brand dry strength and wet strength resins. These technologies really provide the paper maker with the ability to achieve high wet tensile, high dry tensile performance, as well as the right ratio of wet over dry performance. Another area that's the enabling technology are Crepetrol Resisol product line. If you want to go back one, please. Where we have our creping adhesives to really manage the overall Yankee profile, film control, and crepe structure so that you get the best performance out of your Yankee coating. And then on here, I also included some information around spectrum microbiocides. Microbiological control in your process is key from an enabling technology standpoint, because as you bring in these alternative fibers, alternative sources, close your water system up, there's going to be occasion for slime buildup and other biological activity happening in your process that can hurt your overall productivity. So while you want to have the enabling technologies to help you produce the final product, you also have to think about those enabling technologies that allow you to produce those products effectively. From an next slide, please. So Solenis enabling capabilities are really focused on testing and measurement. I think a lot of people have some experience with Hercules in the past, or sorry, Solenis in the past, and our customer support applications and pilot plant, which is really there as a miniature modeling paper machine that allows us to develop and produce paper for testing. Beyond that, we have our Solenis Tissue Innovations Center, which is our art tester, our creping simulator, and our dynamic fabric release simulator. These three tools, if you will, combined really help us to model new chemistries, understand their impact on creping forces, and also allow us to model more closely what happens in a structured sheeted environment, specifically TAD operations, with the fabric release simulator. So it gives us a chance to take a little deeper dive into your process and understand how we can affect it and make it more cost effective. From a case history standpoint, talking a little bit about next generation towels, just to highlight some value of a HERCOBOND 2800 dry strength program. We had a customer challenge out there where they could not produce a premium LDC towel grade, and previous attempts with other chemistries really weren't able to get to the right level of geometric mean tensile that they needed to compete with. Some of the recorded benefits of using a 2800 program in combination with a chymine program were really reduced wet strength usage by 10 to 30% across toweling grades while meeting the higher strength standards, achieved a potential ROI reduction of $11 to $22 per ton, and again, improved the overall geometric mean tensile on all tower grades. So again, able to meet the customer challenge that they had through combination of chymine wet strength resin and HERCOBOND dry strength resin, really forming the right coacervate chemistry to drive that wet tensile and dry tensile performance. I'm going to move on to another pillar where we talk about the evolving away from home experience. I think Richard did touch on door tissue growth as a potential growth vertical, or an area where consumers will be more willing to venture outside the box and look at some new products. In addition to that, we believe that flushable paper towels are going to become more the demand and the norm as we look forward into the new normal. And to help you from the evolving away from home space, I'll go to the next slide, please. Solenis has introduced a new series of Crepetrol products focused on professional series, or our Pro series, really designed specifically to meet the needs of the away from home tissue producer by providing a highly cost-effective platform that drives product uniformity, asset protection, and overall productivity at a cost-effective treatment cost for the away from home space. I'll go to the next slide, please. A case history about our Pro Series creping adhesives. If you want to we had a customer that wanted to update their Yankee coating package to improve overall cost efficiency. That was our primary challenge. And through our Crepetrol Pro creping adhesive platform, we were able to deliver not only cost savings for the program itself, but we're also able to deliver significant improvements in stretch and bulk. So you can see the overall ROI in return for a project like this was pretty high, not only from a cost-effective Yankee treatment program standpoint, but also from an effectiveness on the machine standpoint, where we were able to develop higher levels of stretch, higher levels of bulk, and then that translated to productivity enhancements. So really dual benefit by moving towards the Crepetrol Pro series adhesives. Next slide, please. So as Richard talked about the 4 different platforms, he anchored on mill digitization as we go forward as kind of the last pillar or platform that we feel is going to be pretty important in the market space as we go forward. And I think a lot of us are aware that remote monitoring is something of value, especially as we are not allowing people to travel as much, and to be able to get a real touch point to our customers' processes is important. Mill digitization also gives you end-to-end digitization around the process and understanding of what's happening. And there's an element of predictive analytics to this as well. So from a mill challenge standpoint, there are really 3 categories that I'd like to highlight, right? So there are the market challenges around mills trying to reduce costs in this new normal. There's process variation that needs to be addressed as we go forward. Currently, lab-derived measurements are delayed, so you don't get that real-time feedback that we'd like to have and are prone to error. And then the current solutions really don't address the linearity or lack of linearity that's in the process. There's no real addressing of machine or grade-specific capabilities. And as we all know, each machine does operate very differently, even though they may be twins of each other. And it does depend a lot on manual intervention, and there's a long implementation period that are also associated out there. So enter, if you don't mind, next slide, Solenis solutions around applied intelligence as it relates to our OPTIX platform. OPTIX Overview is really just to kind of highlight how we address applied intelligence. And our ability to really move towards autonomous control is what I'm going to talk about a little bit more. So the how is we have AI-derived virtual measurement. It's tailored to each machine and grade. The really key big takeaway here is it's self-tuning via machine learning. And then lastly, there's no CapEx. It's no hardware. It's all software. And then we couple that with our paper domain expertise, along with the platforms and AI learning algorithms to try to deliver the right type of value. From a lever standpoint, we have real-time quality inputs. From that real-time quality measurement or prediction, we can move to something like autonomous control, and we'll talk about that as a case study. And then the other key takeaway through this process is that we're able to gain insights into the operation itself that may not have been observed before. Because we're collecting so much data, we can then do comparisons against that data to expand our learnings. And at the end of the day, we have a fairly big value contribution around savings, optimization, fiber substitution, reduced variation in the process. So, OPTIX as an overview really gives you the how, the levers, and the value outcome from this remote monitoring process. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the autonomous control case study that I highlighted earlier. And if you want to take a look at the upper right-hand corner, the blue line is a real-time prediction of wet tensile value via the OPTIX tool. The purple line is consumption of chymene wet strength resin. And in both graphs, the yellow dashed line is when OPTIX was implemented. And if you kind of take a closer look at the yellow bar in the 25% space, is that that is the area of opportunity and cost savings that we were able to deliver by having more real-time control, more real-time output from the OPTIX tool. And we were able to do this through improving target adherence to the wet tensile value, tightening up the bell curve, if you will, around process variability, really optimize strength chemistry, again, at no expense for CapEx. I think one of the key takeaways here is I think there's a lot of concern in the industry around security of data. And so there is a lot of work that has gone in behind the scenes to make sure that the way we collect data through the OPTIX platform is fast and secure. And we can certainly talk more about how that works as we go forward. With that, I'll move on to our last slide and just say that beyond COVID-19, there's going to be a new normal, and that there are a lot of opportunities for growth in and around the tissue space if we look at these 4 platforms to focus on. We wanted to share with you Solenis' viewpoint on what's happening as we come out of the lockdown period and we start to move into the new normal and the recovery phase. And we want to share with you some of our capabilities and strengths that can help you in this new market environment. I want to say thank you for your attendance. And of course, if there are any questions for myself or Richard Cho, please feel free to type your questions in the chat window.
Thank you, Steve. We do indeed have a couple of questions that have come in, so I'll start from the top. So first question, what is bamboo tissue? Is it the kind of high strength tissue towel made from bamboo pulp? Who would like to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. So it is. It's tissue made from bamboo pulp. Primarily, it's more prevalent in Asia. But again, as I mentioned, with more of these direct-to-consumer tissue companies selling product into the West, we're seeing more and more the presence of more and more of this type of tissue in North America and Europe. So, but it's made from bamboo pulp. Yes.
Okay. Next question. Considering the problems associated with bamboo fiber, what was the driving force behind increased bamboo pulp usage during the pandemic?
I think, again, I think it was more, it's always been more of a niche segment. And so it wasn't more production, it was more consumer demand, right? So consumers were having a hard time finding tissue. So they were willing to maybe purchase tissue products or tissue brands, which they normally will not. And so more consumers purchase bamboo tissue just because of availability, because maybe their primary brand was not available. So,
which then leads to broader acceptance of those types of products in the market.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
So again, as I mentioned, the direct-to-consumer tissue companies reported 200 to 300% sales increase in the U.S., and those companies primarily sell 100% bamboo tissue. So that's a key data point that I'd like to highlight.
Okay, how disruptive to the mill operations is it to install OPTIX on a machine?
Really limited disruption to the installation of OPTIX. It's all software based. So we typically bring in a team of people to sit down with the mill IT team just to make sure that we can create those right connections. And it's a fairly straightforward and easy installation process to bring OPTIX online. That again is the value of it, because it's all built around soft sensor technology and not really introducing new hard sensors to the process. We're going to piggyback off your current hard sensors in the mill. So fairly straightforward and easy to do.
Yeah, I think the key for OPTIX is the mill needs to have a very good data system, very clean data tags, because it's a predictive tool. It models based on different data. So I think it's not difficult to implement, but it's more, we need to make sure the mill has a very good kind of a data historian.
Okay, what about bamboo harvesting sustainability? Can it be defined eco-friendly with respect to other hardwood plants?
I mean, I think with bamboo, there's again a consumer perception that bamboo is a more sustainable tissue, primarily because it's a plantation fiber. It grows, it regrows faster And I think sort of the group that in terms of protecting the forest, if you use bamboo tissue, there's a perception it's it sort of aligns with protecting the forest.
Okay, so next question. We are from India, Hyderabad. Do you think it is possible to make tissue out of bagasse pulp, considering the bulk being the important factor in the tissue paper grade?
I believe it is, yes. Steve, feel free to chime in. I believe there are tissue makers in Latin America or Asia making tissue from bagasse, but I need to double check that.
And really, we recognize as that there are going to be more alternative fibers, non-wood fibers, finding their way into the manufacture of tissue. We highlighted bamboo since it seems to be something that's a little bit maybe further down the continuum, but there has been bagasse, there's wheat straw, there are other non-wood fibers that are finding their way in. So this is certainly a trend that we saw pre-COVID. And now that we go through post-COVID and we continue to say is the new normal, there may be broader range acceptance of these types of fibers in new products that are introduced to the market. So yes, we have seen some bagasse find its way into the tissue space.
Okay, sorry if you've answered this, but I'll just ask this next one. It says, if so, what is the maximum amount of bagasse pulp that can be added to the overall furnish?
So right now, I probably can't answer that question specifically, and that's something we can get back to you on. There are some data that we have around bagasse content levels in various types of papers, so we can certainly follow up if that's okay with you.
Thanks, Steve. Why are the startups selling bamboo and not other higher quality products?
Again, this is my conjecture. Again, tissue is a mature category. My guess is they've they found an area where maybe they feel there's a white space. The perception that bamboo tissue is more sustainable. The generation millennials and Generation Z, they're there's more affinity towards brands which they feel are more sustainable and more environmentally conscious. So for me, I feel they just it's a segment that maybe they feel there's an opportunity for them to penetrate and go after a different type of consumer. But again, that's my conjecture.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Next question: how does OPTIX collect information from the machine? There is no hardware, right?
Correct. It's really a software system that uses your current tags, your current inputs, and collects the data through that process. So if you have a refiner energy listed on your PI system, for lack of a better way to describe it, then OPTIX would be able to collect that data. Same thing with any other process input. So again, it's really using your current sensor technology, your current hardware, your current system, and taking that data and looking at it in a new and different way.
And so the real value is the real time data available. So the tissue maker can course correct before they run into problems. So it improve runnability, less waste, make more on-spec product. So it's really that real time information. And the ability to course correct before it becomes a problem is really where we're seeing a lot of the value.
Okay, thanks, Richard. So there's no more questions. There's one inquiry to see if this presentation could be made available, and it absolutely can. So we'll follow up with that. So if there's no more questions, we can close the session. So we just want to thank you for your attendance. And Richard, if you have any closing comments, please make them now.
I just thank everyone for your attendance today. And again, if there's any other questions, my email is on the presentation that will be published. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.